All right, we have all kinds of programs at the department. We have grants and we have loans. The purpose of all of our programs is for redevelopment. We're trying to level the playing field with these programs and encourage people to redevelop on sites that have already been developed rather than sprawling onto greenfield sites. So a lot of our sites are in the metro area because they're landlocked, but we also have an equal amount of sites that are eligible for the program that are in greater Minnesota, because we all know that there's some dilapidated buildings, there's contaminated sites, you might have either contamination issues or you might have just straight redevelopment issues. Everybody has that old grain elevator or old lumber yard or some building in their town that needs to come down in order to redevelop. And in greater Minnesota, because you're not landlocked, it's a little easier to just go to the end of town and not deal with that building and put something up at the end of town, but it doesn't help our communities with our community development goals. So we're really encouraging people to utilize these programs because that's why they were created. Oops, I hope I went the right direction. So first of all, I'm going to talk about our contamination cleanup and investigation grant program. These are pictures of some sites that are in the metro area, but Jennifer had showed you some sites that you may or may not think were contaminated. One was just a vacant field. Well, these you can clearly tell there's detriments to redeveloping on these sites. And again, the purpose of this was to level the playing field. And obviously, with some of these sites that have particularly the auto salvage yard, you can just look at that and see what the extra costs are going to be to develop that site. So it's a little harder to entice a developer to come and tackle this site when the cost of the development is the same whether you go to a greenfield or if you come to this site, but clearly there's going to be a lot more cost associated with this kind of site. So these programs were created to have the public dollars induce that development to happen and take away these extra costs. So now we've leveled the playing field and tackle some of these sites that need to be redeveloped rather than just going out to the greenfield sites. Eligible applicants for our programs are basically local units of government. That doesn't mean that the sites have to be owned by the local units of government. Most of them aren't. Most of them are owned by private developers, but our money has to flow through local entities. For the cleanup program, the eligible sites are, we're talking about contamination cleanup. So obviously you know that you have some contamination there. You have to have an approved response action plan from the PCA. So you have to have tested your site. If you haven't done that yet, but you suspect that there's something there, you can apply to us for the investigation dollars. And once you find out what you have and if you need to clean up the site, then you can come into us again for the cleanup dollars. You have to own or have access, obviously, to the properties. You don't have to own it, but you have to get access to it so that you can get onto the site. And because it's at our department, it's an economic development program. So we're expecting that if we clean up your site, you're going to redevelop it into something. We don't just clean up for fun. There has to be some redevelopment potential and plan. The statute tells us to rank these applications based on the economic development that's going to occur. So we're going to ask you about job creation and tax base increase. Eligible costs for the program, again, we can either pay to investigate your site, we pay for the actual cleanup of the site. In some cases, we can pay for demolition of your site if there's contamination underneath your building and it needs to come down in order to get to the contamination. We don't pay for the actual cost of the development. There's no admin fees associated with this. We don't pay landscaping. We're just paying basic cleanup costs. These grant funds are for costs that are not incurred yet, so if you've already incurred your costs, they're typically not eligible for the grant funds. We're assuming you need grant dollars to move forward with the cleanup. In some cases, if you have a cleanup and you need to start moving right away, there are some instances where you can do that within a certain period of the PCA approving your response action plan. Now these grants pay for 75% of your cleanup costs, so there's a 25% local match. For investigations, we can't give you any more than $50,000, and there's no cap on the cleanup cost. It just can't be more than 75% of what your total cost is. And people always say, well, how much should I ask for? What's your cap? Well, we don't have a cap, except it can't be more than 75% of what your costs are. And we always tell people to ask us for what you need, because we don't want you to cut yourself short and not be able to get your project completed. We run cycles every 6 months, so to get to your question about needing a shovel-ready site, because these programs are competitive and we always are oversubscribed, we have more applications in than what we have funds for, the competition can be tough, and it's hard for us to fund a project that doesn't have a redevelopment lined up. However, we're running cycles every 6 months, so We're always happy to talk to a developer if you have one in your community that might want to learn about these programs if you're planning to apply for them, because every 6 months you can come in and we can look at your project to try to give you some money. You can see that 35% of the funds by statute are set aside for Greater Minnesota if we have enough applications that come in. Typically the projects that come in from the metro area are larger, so they have a more economic development kind of boom for what they're asking us for. But I'm from Greater Minnesota, I know there's good projects. We've done this project. You're sitting on a former contaminated site. We've done great projects in Greater Minnesota, and there is a little set aside. It doesn't mean just 35% of the money goes out there. We've given more than 35% in certain grant rounds out to Greater Minnesota, but at least 35% is guaranteed, because often the sites are a little bit smaller, so the economic return is not as big as, you know, Twin Stadium. So I just want you to know that we have a little set aside and pay a little extra attention to our smaller communities. Now these are competitive, so they compete against each other, which can be, you know, healthy. Here's the things that we look at. We're going to look at your tax base increase. We look at social value, which is things like job creation and blight reduction, how ready you are. We're trying to eliminate public health threats by cleaning up the site. But just to give you an idea, if you're trying to apply for the funds, we have 150 points. If you don't get 50 points, then you don't even qualify for money, and that doesn't mean you have a bad project. It just means that if we see that happen, it's usually not a very good fit for the program. It usually doesn't have a strong economic development component to it. And all of our projects are very different. The sites that we see, we've cleaned up everything from 0.9 acres to 235 acres. So if you have a small site, send it in. If you have a large site, send it in. We've done a lot of housing projects, particularly in the recent years when the market kind of crashed and there wasn't so much industrial development going on. And again, we've done things from housing projects that only had 4 units in them to ones that had thousands of units. And again, the applications for the cleanup program and investigation program are May 1st and November 1st of each year. And again, we ask you to apply when your project is ready. Readiness is a big factor for us. The grant terms usually go out for 2 years, and so because of that, we don't want you to apply and then kind of sit on the money, because in 2 years your grant term is going to expire. And we're constantly, again, running these grant cycles, so we would ask that you come in when your project is teed up. And this is just for, when you look this up, you'll find out how to get to our application, because I think it's extremely confusing. We have a closed application process. Here's just some more details about what we need in the application. You're going to need an assessor to appraise your property, because we're going to look at the value before and after. We ask that you just take a look at the program criteria. If you're going to fill out one of these applications, I hope that they're easy to fill out. You can call us at any time, and we're happy to help you through that application process or answer any questions that you have. Typically, from the time they come in on May 1st or November 1st, within six weeks, we'll have grant announcements out. And we ask that your funds be spent within, again, the 2-year grant term. All right, now I'm going to move on to our loan program, and this is actually EPA funding. We applied to money that Jennifer told you about through the EPA. We've done it a few times and have gotten a few increments of dollars from them, so we actually run a revolving loan fund with EPA money. And you're welcome to apply. Actually, I would suggest if you have a project and you want to apply to us, we then end up having to do all the federal paperwork and save you from having to do it. So maybe it's a little easier if you're looking for a loan to apply to us rather than right to the EPA, because, you know, we were the crazy ones who said we would take that on. Again, eligible applicants, this is different. It's local units of government, but it also can be a private person, a private entity. Actually, we've had a couple cities, but most of them have been private entities that have applied for our loan dollars. In order to be eligible, you have to do all appropriate inquiries, which basically means you have to do your due diligence before you purchase the site. You have to own or have access to the site. You cannot be the responsible party for the contamination, and we're going to ask for some financial information to make sure if we give you a loan that you can repay it. Eligible costs for this are very similar to our grant program. It's actual cleanup costs. We can do asbestos abatement in buildings, which we cannot do through our cleanup program. And we can do demolition costs also through this program, just like the cleanup program. For the loans that we've given out, it's been where we didn't have enough. It's been really large cleanup projects. like big Superfund sites that are so large, we don't have enough grant money to give them, and so they'll supplement that extra gap that they still have with these loan dollars. Not always the case. We've done a couple small projects. Actually, we did one in Mankato that didn't have any of our grant money into it. These costs, unlike our cleanup money that can have a little 6-month window, none of these costs can be incurred before the loan dollars are given out. This one takes a little bit longer. It's usually about 90 days for us to complete the loan process, because once we get information in from you, we have to work with the EPA to determine eligibility, so it takes a little bit longer. But the rates and terms are negotiable. We'd like to, have some money come back just to keep this fund revolving, but our goal really isn't to have a bunch of money come back. Our goal really is to help you clean up contaminated sites and get them back on the tax rolls and create some jobs. So we're very negotiable on the rates and terms. This one, we can pay for up to 78% of the cleanup costs, and there's a 22% local match. Currently, we have about $3.5 million available in that program. This one, applications are accepted anytime. And again, that's how you're going to find that. And we're going to ask that you make sure your site qualifies. So if you have any questions, don't go through the paperwork till you call us first. Now this is just our cleanup program today. This is a bunch of success stuff we always like to throw up here. We've done a lot of projects. We've had a lot of jobs created. I think the biggest thing is we've had over $3 billion in non-state funds that we've leveraged with our dollars, which is always nice to be able to tell the legislature they're getting a good deal for the money that they give us. Now I'm going to move on to the redevelopment grant program. This is a project, actually this is the project that Shauna showed you, the Clyde site, or the ironwork site that is now the Boys and Girls Club in the hockey arena in Duluth. That's what it looks like now on the right side. Again, this is local units of government that are eligible to apply for this program. So this is kind of the sister program to our cleanup program. This does not take care of any contamination. This takes care of what I think is more descriptive as the pre-development costs. They have to be previously used sites. We've had people say, well, I have a cornfield, that had previous use. I'm like, yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sites that have like a real use. Usually there's a building and it needs to come down. And again, this is to level the playing field, so we usually see sites that have either buildings on them or there's foundations, and there's some extra cost to developing on these sites that we want to take away to now level the playing field and encourage development on these formerly used sites. And again, we are going to rank on economic development that's going to occur, so you have to have a project ready to go. This program we can pay for infrastructure improvements, demolitions, stable soilization. We're basically going to pay to get rid of all the extra previous development and kind of get it shovel ready to be redeveloped. This program we can do asbestos abatement if somebody wants to redevelop a site, but they're going to redevelop it by reusing the building. We can pay for asbestos abatement through this program. Again, we don't pay for costs that have already been incurred, except we will allow them as a match, because this is a 50% match program. Your match can come from anywhere. We were just lucky enough, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Flaherty had a big part and played a big part in helping us get this. It was not in the governor's initiative, so we had to kind of silently sit back. But we got $6 million from organizations that I'm sure helped lobby for this kind of program, for the program this year, which is huge because it's general fund money, which means we can help rip down buildings on privately owned sites that are going to have private redevelopment. This program is the 50-50 program. 50% of the funds, if we have enough applications come in that score high enough, will go to Greater Minnesota. The grants are very competitive, I would say, because we have less money here. The cleanup money is always coming in, it's in our base. This program we're at the mercy of the legislature for, so when we do get money and it's the right kind of money and it's not bonding money, competition is very high. So I throw this in here, so if you're going to apply for this program, you can go back and look at the PowerPoint and see what it is that we're scoring on. But again, it's basically, you know, what's the detriments on your project and what's the economic development going to be after it's all taken care of and redeveloped. Same deal, 150 points, you have to score at least 50 points to be eligible. And again, apply when your project is ready. We're running cycles every 6 months on this program as well. And again, it's usually a 6 to 8 week turnaround from the time you apply until you know if you get any money. Sometimes we have bond money that comes into this program, which doesn't work for us very well. I'm excited about the next round because we're going to have some general fund money, but we also have some bonding money left over. So bonding money we're going to put towards the public infrastructure that is necessary to redevelop a site. It's a private site, hopefully, so we'll be able to put some general fund and bonding money into the projects. The ownership on the bonding side has to be public, and applications for this program are due February 1st and August 1st of each year. And then that's how you're going to find it. You know, again, call us if you have any questions. We're happy to walk you through. And again, the grant term is a 2-year term, which is why we say don't apply till you're ready, because your money's only going to be available for a couple of years. This program had funds since '98, and then we just have some of our stuff off of our success. This demolition loan program is a new program. It was created a couple of years ago, and we didn't have money to run it, so in February is when we're going to launch this program. So if you have any projects that might be eligible for this, we're going to have workshops in early December. And this program, the same applicants are eligible as the redevelopment program, so it's local units of government. This is a program that we created because we had a lot of communities, particularly in greater Minnesota, that said, I have these old buildings that are sitting in my community. I don't have a developer now. I don't know if I'll have a developer. Somebody periodically asks about this site, but they always, you know, I don't have one right now, but I really need to get this building down. So we created this program so that we could give loan dollars out to communities to help them take these buildings down. And we've structured it in such a way that any time throughout the life of the loan, if you end up getting that developer, we can forgive up to half of the loan. So the redevelopment grant program is a 50-50 grant program. This then becomes, we can forgive half of your loan. So it's as though you have that development in hand and applied for a grant. So it's kind of a way to give you a loan and hope you get someone, and if you don't, then you pay it back, and if you do, we'll forgive half of it. So we're excited to see what kind of applications we're going to get in for this in February. We can pay for up to 100% of the cost. We can't give out more than $1 million. The terms for this one are set in statute, 2% interest for up to 15 years. It's interest-free for the first 2 years. And again, we can forgive half of it if you get a developer at any time while the loan is still outstanding. These are all the places where we've given cleanup and redevelopment grants. So we're hoping that there's some demolition loan applicants somewhere. You can see we've got sites all across the state. These, I'll go through these quickly. These are just when you go back, if you want to look at this, you can see out of all these programs I've just talked about, you know, who's eligible, who the eligible applicants are, what kind of funds we can pay for, so you can try to best see what programs might fit for what your need is. And I've put all of our contact information for everyone in our office up here, and I would encourage you to call any of us if you have any questions on any of these programs. Thank you.